Well, this is a invitation to take a step into the unknown and to contribute your presence to a possible future that can only be imagined at this point, where the religions of the world, insofar as they have developed spiritual practices moving towards human transformation, meet each other instead of conflict or misunderstanding or emphasizing the differences. We might be touched to realize our common bond at this deepest level, resting in the mystery of reality and of life and of love.
This path we're talking about is really a path, certainly, of doing the inner work. You know, I remember Rumi had this verse. He says, if you get irritated by every rub, how will the mirror of your heart ever be polished? Rumi also has this verse who says, I'm amazed at the seekers of truth. That when it comes time to be polished, they complain of rough handling. So the great mystic said, this is the real work. You see? Again, the mystic said, Jamal, you know the value of every article of merchandise. But if you don't know the value of your own soul, it's all foolishness.
Would also meet people from overseas who are very concerned about the need for the world religions to collaborate as a icon of peace.
Respecting every religion, we go ahead. Even on Christmas Day, we read from Quran. So there was one Catholic priest who had celebrated a Mass with us. And he said, Lucy, this is first my experience. There was a little fear in me, how is he going to take it? I said, let him take it. I took the risk. Okay, when we have Mass, we have 3 readings for Christmas. So one I took from Quran, second I took from Bhagavad Gita, and the third one I took from Bible. And it was such a beautiful experience, I can tell you. And the preacher was from Hinduism. Also, there was one nun, and she said, oh my God, I didn't feel it is Christmas. She was the only one among, there were about over 1,000 people. And I asked that sister, if Jesus was here, how would you do it? When Jesus broke that bread and gave it, he did not ask, are you a Hindu? Or he did not turn this side and ask, are you a Muslim? He gave it to the people who were with him. So I said, why not? I said, my God, I want to imitate Jesus.
So people on the transformative process, even if they're just beginning or quite advanced, really can use the support or the sympathy or the example or the teaching of each other, and to meet some of the other people who are completely dedicated, sometimes at great cost, to opening themselves to levels of consciousness and relatedness that the religions of the world are supposed to bring us to.
I'm also trying to help make the saints accessible to us so that we can identify with them. Teresa of Avila is someone that I've really been able to use as a model for being a strong, deeply human being. Now, if she were alive today, and I would venture to say this for any of the great mystics, I think they would all be interfaith.
The boundaries and the barriers that have isolated our religious traditions for centuries are rapidly eroding. Myself, I'm ordained in the Christian tradition, but I prefer to say that I practice Christianity, or that I move within the sacred world of Christianity. And at the same time, I move gratefully and joyfully within other sacred worlds. And talking in that way, it feels as if I'm opening a space that I move within, rather than setting up an identity boundary, which is how it feels if I were to say, I am a Christian. That draws the line, and my identity stops here. Instead, we're coming to recognize that we all participate in this oneness of being, and that all of the sacred traditions, they offer these practices as spiritual resources for the human family. We're now able to see that all the wisdom of all the traditions are the shared spiritual inheritance of the entire human family. And so I think we're moving into a new way of understanding our religions today, and I find that very exciting.
This may be more important than we actually realize. The Snow Mass Conference had always as a backdrop a greater understanding between the world religions.
Interfaith is when people from different traditions, or none for that matter, this isn't restricted to someone who belongs to a religious tradition, by hearing the deep experiences, spiritual experiences of someone else from another tradition, you might resonate with that in such a way that it says to you, well, wait a minute, there's something in your tradition that's either mine doesn't have, or that's articulated more strongly in yours than it is at mine. And I want to learn more about that, so let me become more involved in what you're doing, and maybe even take on a practice, or I'm not saying convert, that's not the issue here, but to broaden yourself, to become more spiritually mature and aware and awake, even though what I'm practicing is not part of my root tradition. That's what I'm really hoping for, is that in the conversations between people of faith, whether it's an official faith or whatever, just people on a spiritual quest, in those conversations real change can happen.
What is it that kept us going these 30 years? We discovered we could learn from each other. And this is something that doesn't always take place in interreligious or interspiritual dialogue, to connect at the deep level where a certain oneness is waiting for us to discover, a oneness that without a commitment to the transformative process isn't likely to happen.
So the question the InterSpiritual movement is asking is, how do the religions become an asset toward our future? How do we go back to how kind we are with each other, what we build together in a world of love and in forgiveness and tolerance and embracing each other and forgetting these claims that would divide us? And actually the InterSpiritual movement, which has representatives from all the traditions, and interestingly enough, basically all their major mystics, because the deeper that people go, the message is not a religious message, it's a message about relationship and about connection and about what relationship and connection imply for the type of world that we want.
This is what we want. We don't want to live in fear. How do we want to live? And we tell them, well, love is the answer. That's how I see it.
Because that's the purpose of religion in the first place, to help humanity love each other. I invite you to this meeting if you feel so moved, and I suspect that it will go far beyond our expectations.